Buon pomeriggio, buonasera a tutti. L'incontro che facciamo adesso parte da un libro, si chiama La fine del dibattito pubblico, è di Feltrinelli e lo ha scritto Mark Thompson, che è qui, che è il presidente del New York Times, l'amministratore delegato, e che viene però inglese, a 59 anni, viene dalla BBC, dove ha fatto il giornalista, ha fatto una carriera interna alla BBC come giornalista fino a diventare direttore generale della televisione britannica. E ha scritto questo libro che io di solito quando presento i libri sono asciutto, invece questo è un libro favoloso. Chiunque ami il giornalismo, il dibattito pubblico, si preoccupi di come siamo arrivati allo stato, qual è lo stato della discussione oggi, dello scontro, l'uso dei social, qualunque di queste domande avete, dovete leggere questo libro. E voglio incominciare nel presentarlo. Il libro nasce, il nucleo, da un ciclo di lezioni che Mark Thompson ha tenuto 4 anni fa a Oxford sulla retorica antica e contemporanea. E il bello è che lui si interroga molto sul fatto che c'è una relazione fortissima tra crisi del dibattito pubblico e crisi della democrazia. E allora però parte facendosi una domanda, analizza le varie risposte che vengono date sulla malattia, le varie diagnosi, e poi però dice, per me la fine del dibattito pubblico non è la conseguenza, ma è la causa. E vi voglio leggere un pezzo, perché c'è molta storia anche dentro, oltre che molta contemporaneità, molto racconto di questi giorni. Però dice, alcuni dei fenomeni che noto nella nostra retorica, come il linguaggio e il racconto fortemente schematici, gli slogan, le frasi memorabili, sono vecchi come il mondo. E non è nemmeno la prima volta che arriva qualcuno a sostenere che gli slogan, i trucchetti retorici, i feroci attacchi ad personam e le menzogne smaccate stanno sostituendo il dibattito razionale, o che la partigianeria estremista sta rendendo impossibile il governo di tutti i giorni. Da Platone a George Orwell, la storia dell'Occidente pullula di moniti sui difetti nel linguaggio politico del giorno, che porta a fondo con sé la stessa politica. Non c'è mai stata un'età dell'oro del linguaggio pubblico, un giardino dell'Eden in cui leader e popolo vivevano in perfetta armonia e i politici erano immancabilmente ragionevoli e cortesi l'uno con l'altro. Ugualmente spiegherò che ci sono alcuni specifici acceleratori che rendono eccezionali le attuali circostanze, in particolare la rivoluzione nei media e nelle comunicazioni e come essa ha interagito con le nostre culture politiche. E poi arriva a dire, è quando il linguaggio pubblico è carente e quindi non sono più possibili le scelte collettive, che la cultura in senso più ampio cola a picco e lo Stato inizia a crollare. Perdonatemi, leggo un'altra piccola citazione perché è importante per introdurre il nostro discorso. Ci ricorda che nel libro terzo della guerra del Peloponneso, Tucidide sostiene che un fattore importante del declino di Atene, da democrazia disfunzionale fino a tirannide e anarchia, è stata una mutazione del linguaggio. La gente iniziava a definire le cose come le pareva e andava perso il significato normale e accettato delle parole. Sallustio, quando racconta la crisi scatenata nel 63 a.C. da Catilina, dice che Catone identificò nel cattivo uso della lingua, in particolare nella scissione tra parole e significato, il fattore causale della minaccia allo Stato. Secondo Catone la società aveva perso i vera vocabula rerum, i veri nomi delle cose. Ecco, io voglio partire da qui, voglio partire chiedendo a Mark Thompson, quando si è rotta questa relazione tra le parole e le cose, tra le parole e il loro significato?
Thank you, Mario. And can I begin by asking you to leave La Repubblica and become my publicity manager? It was a fantastic advert for my book.
Ci penserò.
So I wrote my book because I thought that over my 30-odd years in media, I'd seen things begin to go wrong. You know, as recently as the 1980s and 1990s, I think it was still very possible, becoming harder, but very possible to talk about public policy in ways that ordinary people understood. And somehow or other in the late 90s, things started going wrong. And, you know, what does wrong mean? We've discovered that in recent months that, you know, many Americans, maybe as many as 30% of Americans, don't understand that you can't abolish Obamacare without also abolishing the Affordable Care Act. They've been taught to hate Obamacare because it's a communist plot, but they like the Affordable Care Act because it gives them access to insurance they wouldn't otherwise have, and they don't know they're the same thing, that Obamacare is a name for the Affordable Care Act. So we've reached a point where the public are so distant from the political debate that they don't understand or trust what anyone is saying from the mainstream parties and the elites. And they're very, therefore, susceptible to people who come into this vacuum with a form of language which is very simple, which is very empathetic, which is very appealing, and which says, actually, life is simple. And the populists in Italy, in the United Kingdom, in France, in Germany, in America, are all telling people, don't trust traditional mainstream politicians, don't trust traditional media either. Life is simple, they've all been lying to you, listen to me instead. And that's possible because of those changes in politics. It's become more possible because of the way in which digital media enables everyone to get their message across. My book begins with Sarah Palin disrupting the healthcare debate in the US in 2009, back 8 years ago, with a tweet, which was also a Facebook posting, where she came up with this phrase, death panels, to suggest that behind Obamacare was an attempt by Barack Obama to decide who lives and who dies, essentially. And it worked. It changed the debate. One tweet can change an entire public policy debate. And so I guess my book is about how this kind of very pungent language, very sharp language, has begun to get traction, and how the traditional language of traditional politicians, which you can hear as recently as Ronald Reagan or Margaret Thatcher, even Bill Clinton, that is no longer trusted. And the risk is when people don't understand public policy, democracy begins to fail. When you can't have a rational debate and everything becomes emotive and about personal attacks and exaggeration, you can't have a debate. And if we can't debate with each other, we can't have democracies.
Viene sottolineato nel libro un passaggio in cui si dice che ormai c'è un'allergia alla lettura delle cose lunghe, si cerca lo slogan, le cose brevi. Too long, didn't read, TLDR, cioè l'idea che c'è fastidio, una cosa è troppo lunga e complessa, non mi ci avvicino più. Nel libro a un certo punto racconta, ci sono dei passaggi autobiografici. Mark Thompson arriva alla BBC portando una lettera perché ha visto un concorso in cui prendono dei giovani per 6 mesi e lui arriva semplicemente perché tutti i suoi amici lo hanno fatto, sembra di moda tra gli amici provare a entrare alla BBC, allora lui lo fa, però siccome arriva l'ultimo giorno c'ha paura che le poste non consegnino, va direttamente a metterlo nella buca della posta della BBC per essere sicuro che arrivi e viene preso. È il 79, e sta finendo, schiantandosi l'era laburista e arriva la Thatcher. E lui lì fa esperienza subito di una campagna elettorale di slogan. 4 anni dopo viene mandato per aiutare a fare un programma che si chiamava Breakfast in America forse, something like that, e viene mandato a New York per un periodo e lì arriva nell'era reganiana, cioè arriva nell'era in cui vede nascere gli slogan forti di cui Reagan era un campione. Allora, quanto la politica fatta a slogan è stata responsabile di questo cambio del discorso pubblico?
Well, I think that in that era, there were very, very powerful slogans, and both Mrs. Thatcher and her marketers, but particularly Ronald Reagan, were very good at very, very brief, clever, often quite witty interjections, which were very memorable. There's a very famous moment in a presidential debate between Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, where they're interesting enough talking about healthcare reform. This keeps coming back, health reform, in my book and in real life. And Carter's got a very long, complicated statement about how the Democrats and he are going to repair American healthcare. And Reagan just begins by saying, "There you go again. There you go again." Which just in a few words says, you Democrats, you love to spend more money, you love to put new laws in place, and just implies, you know, if I become president, it'll be very different, it'll be very simple. But to be fair to Reagan, Reagan was perfectly capable. He was a very clever man, very clever writer of speeches. And if you read his speeches, he often dealt with sophisticated public policy, and he had a very complete register. I think Reagan's a good example. I'm not talking about whether you like his politics or not, about a politician who was able to mix public policy and quite thoughtful ideas. His ideas were very anti-communist, very libertarian ideas in many ways, but with empathy, with humor, and with emotion. And he remains one of the most popular presidents of all time in America because of that. But in that era, politicians are using slogan, they're using marketing techniques, but they're still giving set-piece speeches. Now, if we roll forward to 2016, 2017, Donald Trump, very occasionally, the inauguration address to a degree, the address to Congress in February to a degree, much of what Ronald Reagan's doing is an extraordinary kind of alternative to conventional political language. It's incredibly short. It's you know, often it's simple things like, we've got to build a wall. We've got to build a wall. Walls work. This incredibly precise, instant answers. How are you going to change the American economy? Jobs, jobs, jobs. And it's like the slogans no longer have anything behind them. They're pure slogans. And all of which suggests that everything is simple and easy. And I think what's interesting about the Trump presidency now is seeing that rhetoric about the simplicity of government interacting with the reality of government. But this style of speaking itself has got some ancient roots. When Julius Caesar is campaigning away from Rome, he wants to keep his name alive back in Rome, and he writes letters which can be literally nailed on street corners. So you don't want flowery language, you don't want kind of Ciceronian rhetoric, you want something simple. Veni, vidi, vici, I came, I saw, I conquered. And in a way, the rhetoric of Wall's work is like that. Now, Julius Caesar didn't have Twitter, but it turns out this kind of language, which the rhetoricians call parataxis, really works for Twitter and Facebook. It's a kind of language which is, it's the language of the general, the strong man. You know, I'm going to sweep away the lawyers and the politicians. I'm just going to get things done. And the exponents always claim that they're not using rhetoric. Silvio Berlusconi used to say, if there's one thing I can't abide, it's rhetoric. All I care about is what needs to get done. And Donald Trump on the inauguration day said, "The time for empty words is over. Now arrives the hour of action." But the irony is, having said, "Now is the hour of action," actually what's followed since then largely are words. And even the executive orders, some of them I accept have made real, they kind of feel like they're rhetorical instruments. They're another way of talking. And so, in a way, Donald Trump's, he's conducting a kind of one-man blitzkrieg of tweets and Facebook and one-liners in front of the cameras, very occasional set-piece speeches, very combative press conferences, an incredible number of interviews. An incredible number of interviews. By the way, really several interviews for the New York Times. I mean, despite what he's saying about the Times, he's talking to us a great deal. So it's a kind of government by words in many ways. But what's fascinating is, what is behind the slogans, and I guess we're going to find out.
Quanto nella costruzione degli slogan politici ha influito il trasferimento delle politiche di marketing fatte per vendere un prodotto dentro la politica. A un certo punto c'è un capitolo in cui Mark racconta come nel 1937 viene pubblicato un manuale negli Stati Uniti, il primo manuale per venditori, il primo manuale sostanzialmente di marketing, e lo scrive un tale Elmer Wheeler, che da ragazzo lavorava alla pompa di benzina nello stato di New York insieme al padre, e il libro lo comincia dicendo che un giorno lui capisce che forse le cose si possono vendere se si usano le parole in un modo diverso, perché si ferma un commesso viaggiatore e gli fa delle domande, gli dice: ma lei quando fa benzina agli automobilisti che cosa dice? E questo Wheeler dice: ma io gli risposi, alla gente chiedo se vogliono che faccia un 5, un 10, altre volte chiedo soltanto oggi quanta benzina vuole. E il rappresentante gli disse: al prossimo cliente che arriva chiedi, faccio il pieno? Usai quella frase e il conducente mi disse di procedere. Vendetti 15 galloni invece dei soliti 5. Che metodo a prova di bomba per riempire i serbatoi? E poco più avanti racconta, e qui c'è per me tutto Trump, che Wheeler dice: la cosa fondamentale che dovete capire è che la gente formula giudizi lampo, si fa un'opinione su di te nei primi 10 secondi e questo influenza tutto il tuo atteggiamento riguardo a ciò che avrai da dirgli. Allora penso che forse con un po' di ingenuità il primo dibattito tra Trump e Hillary Clinton a settembre, che è stato visto da 100 milioni di persone non nei primi 10 secondi, ma da 100 milioni nei primi 10 minuti, e poi è sceso, se uno lo guardava tutto la sensazione era che avesse vinto Hillary Clinton. Se però uno si guarda i primi 10 minuti, nei primi 10 minuti Trump dice una sola cosa e la ripete più volte. Sono andato stamattina a rivedermi il primo tweet che ho fatto nei primi 10 minuti di quel dibattito, e lui dice: parlo a voi che state in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania e Ohio. Uno è swing state, 2 erano 2 stati democratici. Voi che avete perso il lavoro, io vi dico, mai più i vostri lavori se ne andranno oltre confine. Allora, probabilmente, poi non ha detto come, quando, in che modo, ma probabilmente milioni di persone hanno detto: ma questo non l'aveva mai detto nessuno. Allora, quanto è importante, e voi nel libro poi a un certo punto racconti come Fox News abbia fatto delle analisi sulle persone, e le persone non dicevano questo qua dice delle cose giuste che farà, questo dice le cose che io penso, che mi voglio sentir dire. Quanto è importante in un tempo di crisi sentirsi dire quello che forse nessuno ti ha mai detto?
And to hear someone who is seemingly talking the way you talk and thinking the way you talk. I mean, Donald Trump is a billionaire who lives a very rarefied life, but he found a way of talking to tens of millions of Americans, which they felt was truer, was more authentic than they'd ever heard from a politician. So the title of the book by Elmer Wheeler it's Tested Sentences That Work. Tested Sentences That Work. And the idea is you empirically try and figure out what language works. What language helps you sell? Do you sell more if you say this than that? And incredibly, in 1937, Wheeler has created something he calls a psychogalvanometer, which is a bit like, I think, like a lie detector test. So he's strapping people up and seeing which words are in some way more effective than other words in 1937. So the whole idea of the empirical testing of language, which has now become Optimizely and A/B and multivariate testing on the internet and is highly, it's algorithmic, it's very sophisticated. He's kind of figured out back in 1937 that you can think of persuasion, in this case sales, as a science. Now we know that Donald Trump was using behavioral scientists and data. By the way, so was everyone else. Bernie Sanders was using Optimizely, and he was adjusting the way he expressed his policies on the internet by looking empirically at how people who hit his site. So everyone, including the most ideologically pure players, were using this technology. But with Donald Trump, it's really, if you look at the video, it's really striking that Hillary Clinton was speaking essentially always to the converted, to relatively small groups of fully paid up supporters, and she was typically sticking very close to a prepared script. And that meant she was learning very, very little from her public occasions. Trump was doing these very big, raucous rallies. There were hecklers, there were protesters, but he was listening, and he was also ad-libbing, and you can see him listening to see what works with the crowd. And he's doing a one-man kind of empirical experiment through the campaign of what words, what phrases resonate. He finds that the phrase political correctness in any form, if he says political correctness in any way, he gets a standing ovation. He doesn't have to say anything about it, really. He just has to say the words. And I think what political correctness, I think, meant to those crowds was actually something different from what it means to many people, I guess, in this room. To those crowds, I think political correctness means affirmative action, and it means the suggestion that jobs are taken away from white Americans and given to ethnic minorities. And I think, in other words, I think it's about a federal government which takes your job and your children's prospects away because it's so obsessed with other people. So, but he finds out just by trying it what works. And I think a lot of his campaign is based on this. He was asked, there was a moment in late August, September, because very few journalists believed you could win doing this. Most journalists assumed he would have to be reined in, would have to go back to the auto queue if he was going to win. And so he was asked, are you going to clean up your act? Are you going to be more responsible? And he says, I don't want to change the way I speak. It's what has got me here. It's the way I speak is the reason I'm now a candidate. So Trump himself makes the connection between the way he speaks and I would say also the way he listens as the reason that he's now in the White House.
Ecco, esattamente questo mi interessa, il modo in cui lui ha ascoltato. Nel 2004, dopo la seconda vittoria di George W. Bush alla Casa Bianca, il New York Times fece una serie di editoriali e poi un'inchiesta in cui si interrogarono perché non abbiamo capito quello slogan di Karl Rove. Karl Rove disse noi vinceremo le elezioni incendiando le praterie, e cioè parlando di aveva incendiato soprattutto l'area dei cristiani evangelici, parlandogli dei matrimoni gay, dell'aborto, delle cellule staminali. E il New York Times disse non abbiamo avuto abbastanza orecchio a certe parti della società e non le abbiamo capito. E mi ricordo che fece un'inchiesta per esempio sulla religiosità in America, sui comportamenti sociali. Di nuovo questa volta non mi interessa fare il gioco in cui si dice adesso ma i giornalisti non hanno capito niente, non sapevano niente, non è quella roba lì, perché non è neanche vero. Molti di quelli che lavoravano con Trump non pensavano che lui avrebbe vinto, però c'è da interrogarsi come mai lui è stato capace di ascoltare un malessere meglio di molti che lo fanno per professione. Allora, che cosa significa il malessere? Significa avere capito che la rabbia era così forte che le persone non volevano delle ricette complesse, ma volevano qualcuno che gli dicesse andiamo a Washington e rovesciamo il tavolo. L'importante è rovesciare il tavolo, basta, siamo stanchi. Allora, da questo punto di vista c'è un dibattito, per esempio nei giornalisti americani, nel New York Times, sulla capacità di ascoltare?
So I think this is a really interesting area. I think the anger point, first of all, and the fact that he intuited the anger is very interesting. It's complex. He used the phrase in the inauguration address, "this American carnage," and part of his technique is to exaggerate, but also, as it were, to argue from the particular to the general. So if one Mexican immigrant is found to be guilty of rape, he seems to imply that all Mexicans are rapists. If somebody's lost their job or been the victim of violence, that everyone in America lives in fear. But the intuition he had was that was sufficiently widespread that he wouldn't just be talking to a minority, but to a surprisingly large number of Americans. And I think that what many people, I think the media, but also, it must be said, both parties, and by the way, the Trump camp themselves also were taken by surprise by his victory. So pretty much all of the observers were taken by surprise, but it tells you something about Trump's intuition. What essentially happened, I think, though with a very big caveat that I'm no longer a practicing journalist and I'm not an American, so I'm not an expert in this, is that the anger spread further into more affluent households and into the suburbs than people thought. And I think one of the issues the left had is they came up with a stereotype of a angry blue-collar man in a baseball cap as a stereotypical Trump supporter, and thought that was a small group of people. As we now know, a majority of women voted for Trump, and almost as many women with white women with college degrees voted for Trump as voted for Hillary Clinton. It's very close. White women with college degrees, very finely balanced between the two candidates. So I think to me, it's the journalistic question is, how do you weigh the anger versus, and frankly, people's reaction to exaggeration relative to the facts? And what is so interesting, and I think it's a profound point, which takes us back to rhetoric, is emotion and a sense of identity, particularly when you think your values are under pressure, is incredibly important. What Aristotle says is that persuasion, being persuaded, isn't just about reason and argument and evidence, that he calls that logos, but it's also about your mood, pathos, and the kind of character and the empathy you have with the speaker. The speaker's character he calls ethos. And ethos and pathos are incredibly important. And it seems to me that what happened with certainly the world's elites, the economists, the social scientists, the political scientists, they thought it was all about logic and reason and making an argument based on the evidence, and forgot that how people feel really matters as well. And his insight, I mean, I would say what one would say about Donald Trump is he's pretty good on the ethos and pathos front in rhetorical terms. It's completely unclear about whether there's any reason in the mix at all. In other words, whether this can be turned into rational policy at all. But he definitely understood that there was an imbalance in politics. And his opportunity was this chance to demonstrate empathy in a way which won the moment. And obviously we can see populists trying to do the same. I will give you one more example, which is the Leave campaign in last year's UK referendum didn't have as many experts on their side as Remain did, so they rubbished the idea of experts. Michael Gove, one of the Leave leaders, said, I think this country's had enough of experts. But they also came up with two slogans, Take Back Control and Independence Day. Now, any rational person says, take back control of what? What do you think, what does that mean? What are you going to take back control of? And when you talk about independence, I mean, realistically kind of floating on your own in the North Atlantic, is that really independence? But it misses the emotional point. People they feel a loss of agency, they feel they're powerless. So somebody says to them, you can take back control, that's a very powerful message. And independence, of course, again, it's the same point really. You don't want to be, you know, enthralled to somebody else. You want to be able to make your own decisions. So I think the populace as a whole, you can argue about whether this is cynical or not, they're seizing this moment to say, actually, we are listening to you, we come back to you.
Non pensi che ci sia anche da riaggiornare le chiavi interpretative della società? Dopo i discorsi sessisti di Donald Trump, tutti gli intellettuali, i giornalisti del pianeta dicevano beh, non può più vincere. A me in quei giorni un mio amico americano che era venuto in vacanza in Italia, gli ho detto beh, non può vincere, e lui mi ha risposto guarda, qualche giorno fa ero a Filadelfia, abbiamo fatto un barbecue di famiglia e un mio cugino parlavamo e io mentre facevo il barbecue ho detto beh, non può vincere e diventare presidente uno che è così tanto non politicamente corretto. E lui mi ha risposto perché è politicamente corretto che un altro parente abbia perso la casa nella crisi del subprime? È politicamente corretto che mio figlio abbia un debito dell'università che ci metterà 25 anni a ripagare? Tutto questo è politicamente corretto o vi preoccupate solo del linguaggio? E lui mi ha detto, questa cosa qua mi ha sconvolto, perché mio cugino, che ha sempre votato democratico, mi stava dicendo che c'era qualche cosa che lo allarmava di più.
I think that's exactly right, and I think further there's some evidence. Tina Brown wrote a very good piece about this in The Guardian. There's some evidence as well that many American women actually felt rather patronized by other women telling them how to vote on the basis of these remarks. And what Tina essentially said is, Tina herself, by the way, would absolutely be very strongly against the remarks and against sexism of any kind, but she said these women are kind of living in communities where sexual harassment and sexist remarks are a fact of life, and that they are coping with it, they're dealing with it, and being told, as it were, by women from the elites in New York and Washington and Los Angeles that means they can't vote for someone. They would rather make up their own minds about that. So I think even the automatic assumption that all women in America would react in exactly the same way as elite liberal women turned out to be a mistake.
Tu sei arrivato negli Stati Uniti la prima volta appunto negli anni '80, quando nasceva per esempio CNN, nascevano le televisioni che poi avrebbero fatto 24 ore su 24. Ecco, quanto pensi, cioè io ho la sensazione che il dibattito pubblico e la percezione siano molto cambiate da quando c'è il ciclo informativo continuo, prima televisivo e poi del web. Cioè la nostra dieta mediatica, come fosse, faccio un paragone con la dieta invece, come si dice, alimentare, la dieta alimentare prima aveva colazione, pranzo e cena. La dieta mediatica aveva i giornali la mattina, aveva la radio, aveva il telegiornale la sera. In entrambi i casi, tra una cosa e l'altra, avevamo tempo di digerire le informazioni. Persino i giornalisti televisivi, se stanno in diretta 10 ore di seguito, alla fine non hanno mai tempo per staccare, pensare, prendere le distanze. E quindi noi oggi, anche nell'informazione, è come se mangiassimo un eterno happy hour 24 ore su 24, con conseguenze evidenti di acidità di stomaco, non si sa cosa si mangia, sono sempre bocconi presi qua e là. Allora, in questo, e questo secondo me ti dà una percezione falsata della realtà. Oggi noi negli Stati Uniti c'era la sensazione durante la campagna elettorale, Trump lo ripeteva, che ci fosse molta più violenza contro la polizia, per esempio, che in passato, mentre gli omicidi di poliziotti nel 2016 erano la metà di quelli che c'erano nel 1993. Allo stesso modo, oggi in Italia ci sono molti meno crimini violenti di quanti ce ne fossero 20 anni fa. Allora, però la percezione, siccome tutto ci arriva in casa continuamente, è tutto globale, la nostra percezione di insicurezza è aumentata. Come si cura questo? Tanto se lo condividi, ma poi come si cura? Come si fa a digerire?
Well, I think what you say is true. I mean, I say in the book. I mean, there was a moment in 1989, which was a very big year for news. This is now 28 years ago. I remember I ran for much of the Tiananmen Square crisis in China. I was running the BBC's news operation in Tiananmen Square, and I found myself standing on a bus in the middle of Tiananmen Square with a mobile phone and a camera, a live camera back to all the way through 2 satellites back to the UK, broadcasting, I think what was at that point the 20th package of the day, back to London, where it was going to be beamed out to the world. I mean, we used to do like 1 story and 1 video package a day, and by this time we were doing 20 or 30 in a single day. And we discovered this elementary point: is you can't have a reporter in front of a camera and also reporting a story. If they're in front of the camera, you have to tell them what's going on. You have to whisper in their ear what's actually happening, because they're no longer a reporter, they're a kind of talking head. So this kind of utterly continuous process, which, by the way, robs journalists of thinking time themselves. So the journalists are completely chasing after one thing. It means holding politicians to account is very difficult, because by the time, this is particularly a Trumpian phenomenon, by the time the first thing's been checked, already he's moved on to the next thing and you're checking the next thing. So at the Times, the New York Times, what we're trying to do, we are trying to give both journalists and audiences space and time. Our articles on average have been getting longer, not shorter, and actually that works. I think the business of the length of article, I think we've got to be careful of not losing faith in our audience. I think if we've got great journalism and great stories, I think people will stick with longer stories. And I think it's very important that we continue to pursue stories even when they're out of the headlines, and try and finish the story. But this means you need an enormous newsroom. We have between 13 and 1,400 people in our newsroom, because covering the news, given the sheer amount of news now, needs colossal resources. We've been putting more. We've already put $5 million more into the newsroom budget for this year. We'll probably put another $5 million in the current year, because of the scale of the story. What I want to say is that the right answer to complicated stories and fast-breaking stories is more and better journalism. From our point of view, it's the only answer we can give. And I think that gigantic stories like American politics now, the future of Europe, really call on journalists and the proprietors of newspapers and TV stations to find the means to enable our kind of frontline troops to do their job and cover these stories as well as they can be covered.
Ecco, andiamo alle soluzioni. Il libro si chiude, è un libro che fa preoccupare parecchio, si chiude però con un tono ottimista. Leggo le ultime righe, dice: ma non disperiamo, il linguaggio pubblico è risolto altre volte, come in Inghilterra nei decenni successivi alla guerra civile, in certi casi anche quando era già stata impartita l'estrema unzione. La ripresa non dipende dalla vittoria di un'ideologia sull'altra, né dai ponderati inviti alla riforma, ma da un volgere della marea nella cultura e nella società. Siamo creature di buon senso e sappiamo che la nostra vita insieme dipende dalla nostra capacità di risolvere i dissidi, almeno quasi sempre. Prima o poi dovrebbe spuntare un nuovo linguaggio della persuasione ragionevole, solo che non sappiamo ancora quando. Allora, cosa potete fare durante questo incerto tempo? Aprite le orecchie, usate il giudizio, pensate, parlate, ridete, squarciate il baccano. Io lo trovo un finale strepitoso. E ti voglio chiedere questo. Intanto c'è ridete, che in tempi cupi mi sembra una cosa bellissima, e anche squarciate il baccano. Ma non pensi, tu sostanzialmente dici serve un'informazione equilibrata, razionale, condivisa, non continuamente conflittuale. Ma non pensi, ti chiedo, ma può davvero servire parlare diverso? Se uno scala le marce e scende di tono, che cos'è questo? È rivoluzionario o si rischia di diventare ininfluenti e inesistenti in un dibattito invece così rumoroso?
Well, you talk about laughing. I think satirists and satire have a really important role to play. I mean, in many ways, satirists are they're the kind of street cleaners of rhetoric. I mean, a lot of what they do is they make fun of the way people speak, the absurdities, the contradictions of the way public figures speak. And I think actually it's not an accident, you know, going back to Aristophanes and Juvenal, that in moments of extreme political stress, satire is at its most important and often at its best. And we're seeing, I think, both in Britain, but particularly in the United States, an amazing revival of satire right now. So I actually think making fun of what's happening is a way of understanding what's happening and a way of getting people to put what's happening in context. But yes, I think we need to find a different tone of voice. I think the listening point, Martin Heidegger described rhetoric as the art of listening, not the art of speaking, but the art of listening. And I think the idea that helping our children to develop the critical faculties to listen and to discriminate is itself really important. And I think that the ultimate solution to fake news is not going to be algorithms which kind of flag what's true and what's not true. It's going to be having a generation of users who have got a sense of how you tell and what's the difference between journalism you can trust because of its provenance, because you can see the reporter, you know who the reporter is, because you know it comes from La Repubblica and you can write to Mario if you're not happy with it. There's a kind of accountability there. And so the listening part, I think, is really important. But I think finding a way of speaking which people really understand is important. And I think also carrying on with arguments until you've made your case to the satisfaction of the person who's listening. I think there's a real problem that particularly the elites think that it's okay to stop an argument when you've convinced yourself and you've convinced your friends. So, free trade, is it a good thing? Most of the world's elite thinks it's a really good thing, but they stopped telling people why it was good years ago. And nowhere in the Brexit debate that I heard, and nowhere in the American presidential debate did I hear the case for free trade being made. Vaccine safety. Are vaccines safe? Scientists and medical people are convinced they are. I'm convinced they are. But we've stopped making the case, and you hear scientists saying we should stop people who deny vaccine safety being heard. Immigration. I believe that immigration is a good thing. It helps societies in many ways. Nobody makes the case for immigration. And in fact, I certainly believe in the UK, and I think in America as well, there was an attempt to suppress a debate about immigration. Everyone knew that public anxiety was rising about immigration, but people didn't want to talk about it for fear it would increase racism. So they said, well, let's try not talking about it. And I think one of the reasons we've seen populism rising across the Western world is because of a well-intentioned attempt to stop the debate happening. One of the things I did at the BBC was allowed an extreme right-wing figure to appear on a very big debate, because I think you should have debates. You should let the public decide. And so I think at the bottom of everything, I think you have to trust the public. You have to, and they will trust us, they will trust the media, and they will trust politicians if we regain our trust in them. And frankly, producing crap for clickbait because you don't think people have got an attention span is not trusting them. You have to trust them and trust that they want serious journalism.
Ecco, tu dici trust the public, ma ti chiedo questo. Nel libro tu dici molto cosa deve fare, come si deve ripensare il giornalismo, come dovrebbe cambiare il dibattito pubblico dei politici. Che responsabilità hanno i cittadini, abbiamo come cittadini e come lettori? Nel senso, per esempio, cioè, non pensi che sia utile anche un richiamo alle responsabilità di informarsi, di fare fatica? Quando si dice, lo scrivi anche nel tuo libro, che dici in Inghilterra la campagna col Brexit, la campagna ha fregato la città, i vecchi hanno fregato i giovani e i giovani saranno vittime di questo, di Brexit. Poi però uno va a vedere che i giovani hanno votato sì, ma la percentuale di giovani che ha votato è inferiore, cioè quelli che hanno sotto i 25 anni sono molto in meno di quelli che hanno più di 80 anni. Allora ti chiedo, ma uno anziché dire poveri giovani, non dovrebbe dire giovani, era vostro dovere andare a votare, dovete rimboccarvi le maniche e fare il vostro pezzo, non è che dovete stare a aspettare e piangervi addosso.
Yeah. So I think that at the bottom of this, there's an obvious point, which is voters, citizens, always bear the consequences. I mean, in the end, if bad government happens, the public bear the consequences. The British public are going to bear the consequences for Brexit. And if, by the way, Brexit is economically very problematic or even disastrous, which is possible, it'll be the people who voted for Brexit who bear the worst consequences. And I think what we have to do in our schools and colleges and more broadly is remind people this stuff is serious. It may seem distant and unimportant, but the day to find out what the European Union is by Googling the term, the right day for that is before, not after the vote. Google saw a spike of inquiries about what Europe is after the vote. That's not the right moment. And so I do think trying to encourage citizens to understand that the future is serious, the world faces, there are many great opportunities, in many ways life is better than it used to be, but there are many, many big issues, and the consequences of not getting involved can be very serious for Western societies. But I have to say, I think we earn the right to say that to citizens when we show, in a sense, that we can interact with them ourselves with empathy and sympathy and understanding, as well as with our great articulate skills and everything we bring to the table. And I think there's something about re-establishing the relationship between media, politicians, and the public, which, in a perfect world, everyone would do it at the same time, but it's probably got to begin with us. Realistically, it's got to begin with us.
Io vedo che abbiamo ancora tipo 5-10 minuti, ma vorrei farti 3 domande e vorrei passare al tuo lavoro. Intanto ti vorrei chiedere una cosa. Tu sei un inglese che è andato al New York Times. Un inglese è Jerry Baker, che è il direttore del Wall Street Journal, e un australiano è Robert Thompson, che è l'amministratore delegato di News Corp. Come mai prendono gli inglesi a guidare i giornali americani?
So it's kind of, I mean, this is a puzzle. And by the way, I've been asked by an awful lot of people, including people in the American news business, this question. And I haven't got a straight answer. I mean, the one thing I would say is that I think there's more of a tradition in Britain and and Australia for careers which move between the business side and the newsroom. I'm really a church. I'm a bishop. I grew up on the church side of the divide. But in television, particularly British television, You end up doing a lot of management and leadership as well. And because television is so expensive, you worry about the economics and budgets and spreadsheets and all of that. And I think we do end up with more of an understanding that it's useful if you understand both. And my fundamental belief is, I was a pretty good journalist and a pretty good editor, but there are lots of good journalists and editors. In the end, the battle for the future of journalism and high-quality content is going to be won in the fields of strategy and economics. Can we figure it out? And so I thought that was the most important thing to do. But I think that's partly to do with that. The other thing is that the UK, as people will know, and Australia are both brutally competitive media markets. I mean, they are very, very tough markets. They're just the character of what happens and the often rather brief periods that people are in key jobs. If you don't perform, you're out. Means there's a sense of urgency in those markets. And in some ways, I think that the as it were, New York media was looking for some urgency, and maybe we provide that as well.
Ok. In questo più c'è stata un'altra cosa, che quando sei diventato 4 anni fa, appunto, sei passato al New York Times a gestire il New York Times, venivi da una televisione. Questo in alcuni ha destato un po' di scandalo. Jeff Jarvis, che forse è da queste parti, che è sempre qui, disse in un'intervista: chi crede che ci sia differenza tra giornali e TV nel 2012 fa un grosso errore. Tra l'altro poi è curioso anche che invece a dirigere la BBC, le news della BBC, sia andato un giornalista di carta come James Harding, che veniva dal Times, e quindi anche lì c'è stato un incrocio. Davvero pensi oggi che ci sia, che quello che dice Jarvis sia giusto, che non c'è più differenza tra giornali e televisioni?
Look, there are skills which are distinct to both. There are many creative skills which are still different in visual journalism and indeed even TV compared to journalism based on the written word and on photojournalism. So there are still many specialist skills you need which are different. But convergence, which was talked about for decades before it happened, convergence is now obviously happening. It's just happening. It's a fact of life. And disruption is happening to TV as well as media. And I would say that questions like, how do you understand your audience deeply? How do you connect your audience? How do you think about the expression of journalism on a smartphone, which is capable of doing both TV-like experiences and newspaper-like experiences? How do you think about internationalizing what you do, reaching out to global audiences, which was definitely something I was involved in heavily at the BBC? And how do you think about change inside proud legacy organizations? So organizations with amazing histories, amazing brands, but some rigidity. How do you think about change which is going to be creative and collaborative and positive, rather than being a brutal series of cuts and kind of feel like it's a downward spiral? That all of those things are more important in leadership terms than the specifics of the medium.
Faccio una domanda interessata. Quando è finito questo incontro, qui ce n'è un altro in cui faremo un dibattito e presenteremo un documentario che ha prodotto Repubblica. È la prima volta che produciamo un documentario su Giulio Regeni, sulla sua morte, sui suoi ultimi 9 giorni al Cairo. E abbiamo pensato che ormai, se uno produce un reportage, un long form journalism, non può più fare soltanto lo scritto, e per cui abbiamo fatto insieme un lungo reportage, questo documentario e una serie per il sito, una web serie che ci sarà la prossima settimana. Allora voglio chiedere quanto nella strategia del New York Times sono importanti i video.
So I think that in the broader sense, video, i.e. moving pictures and sound are incredibly important. And by the way, they're important to covering straight news. I mean, the most important application of video for us is the application of video in our reporting of the news, which we think is increasingly going to be a mixture of, I think the spine is always going to be the written word, but of video, virtual reality, augmented reality, photojournalism, infographics, and so forth. But for the right stories, I think long-form video in the form of documentaries is a wonderful thing to do. I think it's culturally very important. I think it's a great way of doing certain kinds of journalistic story. I've been involved for too long in the documentary business to believe that it's a get-rich-quick scheme. The documentary makers I know, I have many friends who are documentary makers, don't drive around in Ferraris. It's a tough business. It's not a solution to the monetization problems for newspapers. But I think it's a really valuable thing to do. And I think right now we're seeing a renaissance of specifically documentaries which are focused on narrative investigative journalism. And it's a fabulous way of storytelling for a certain kind of investigative story.
Ultima domanda, abbiamo finito, brevissima. Ormai siamo a 5 mesi dall'elezione di Trump e a quasi 100 giorni che lui è presidente. Quanto davvero sta aiutando i tuoi conti e i tuoi budget Trump presidente?
Well, I mean, it's one of the sort of dirty little secrets of journalism that bad news is good for business. The end of the world will be great until it isn't, sort of thing. And it's true, there's a lot of focus on what's happening. There's many Americans are focused on the news far more than they would be. We, in the last 3 months of 2016, added more digital subscribers than we did in the whole of 2013 and the whole of 2014 put together, and it continues. So we're doing our jobs. We're not creating the news, we're covering the news, but it's true, this is a period where we have great confidence that our thesis about the future of journalism, which is quality journalism, will find an audience who is hungry to understand the world, and that audience will pay for it and will pay for it on digital. We believe that our view of the future of a viable business model with advertising, but based on a deep relationship with a paying audience, will work and is already proving itself.
Grazie, grazie a Mark Thompson, grazie a tutti voi. Ragionevoli e cortesi l'uno con l'altro. Ugualmente spiegherò che ci sono alcuni specifici acceleratori che rendono eccezionali le attuali circostanze, in particolare la rivoluzione nei media e nelle comunicazioni e come essa ha interagito con le nostre culture politiche. E poi arriva a dire, è quando il linguaggio pubblico è carente e quindi non sono più possibili le scelte collettive, che la cultura in senso più ampio cola a picco e lo Stato inizia a crollare. Perdonatemi, leggo un'altra piccola citazione perché è importante per introdurre il nostro discorso. Ci ricorda che nel libro terzo della guerra del Peloponneso, Tucidide sostiene che un fattore importante del declino di Atene, da democrazia disfunzionale fino a tirannide e anarchia, è stata una mutazione del linguaggio. La gente iniziava a definire le cose come le pareva e andava perso il significato normale e accettato delle parole. Sallustio, quando racconta la crisi scatenata nel 63 a.C., buon pomeriggio, buonasera a tutti. L'incontro che facciamo adesso parte da un libro, si chiama La fine del dibattito pubblico, è di Feltrinelli e lo ha scritto Mark Thompson, che è qui, che è il presidente del New York Times, l'amministratore delegato, e che viene però inglese, a 59 anni, viene dalla BBC, dove ha fatto il giornalista, ha fatto una carriera interna alla BBC come giornalista fino a diventare direttore generale della televisione britannica. E ha scritto questo libro che io di solito quando presento i libri sono asciutto, invece questo è un libro favoloso. Chiunque ami il giornalismo, il dibattito pubblico, si preoccupi di come siamo arrivati allo stato, qual è lo stato della discussione oggi, dello scontro, l'uso dei social, qualunque di queste domande avete, dovete leggere questo libro. E voglio incominciare nel presentarlo. Il libro nasce, il nucleo, da un ciclo di lezioni che Mark Thompson ha tenuto 4 anni fa a Oxford sulla retorica antica e contemporanea. E il bello è che lui si interroga molto sul fatto che c'è una relazione fortissima tra crisi del dibattito pubblico e crisi della democrazia. E allora però parte facendosi una domanda, analizza le varie risposte che vengono date sulla malattia, le varie diagnosi, e poi però dice, per me la fine del dibattito pubblico non è la conseguenza, ma, visto da Catilina, dice che Catone identificò nel cattivo uso della lingua, in particolare nella scissione tra parole e significato, il fattore causale della minaccia allo Stato. Secondo Catone la società aveva perso i vera vocabula rerum, i veri nomi delle cose. Ecco, io voglio partire da qui, voglio partire chiedendo a Mark Thompson, quando si è rotta questa relazione tra le parole e le cose, tra le parole e il loro significato?
Thank you, Mario. And can I begin by asking you to leave La Repubblica and become my publicity manager? It was a fantastic advert for my book.
Ci penserò.
So I wrote my book because I thought that over my 30-odd years in media, I'd seen things begin to go wrong. You know, as recently as the 1980s and 1990s, I think it was still very possible.
È la causa. E vi voglio leggere un pezzo, perché c'è molta storia anche dentro, oltre che molta contemporaneità, molto racconto di questi giorni. Però dice, alcuni dei fenomeni che noto nella nostra retorica, come il linguaggio e il racconto fortemente schematici, gli slogan, le frasi memorabili, sono vecchi come il mondo. E non è nemmeno la prima volta che arriva qualcuno a sostenere che gli slogan, i trucchetti retorici, i feroci attacchi ad personam e le menzogne smaccate stanno sostituendo il dibattito razionale o che la partigianeria estremista sta rendendo impossibile il governo di tutti i giorni. Da Platone a George Orwell, la storia dell'Occidente pullula di moniti sui difetti nel linguaggio politico del giorno, che porta a fondo con sé la stessa politica. Non c'è mai stata un'età dell'oro del linguaggio pubblico, un giardino dell'Eden in cui leader e popolo vivevano in perfetta armonia e i politici erano immancabilmente